Yeah, I pretty much always thought about how I would be able to make a video game. When I was smaller, in kindergarten, I made like a fake TV out of boxes and painted like my own Sonic game on it. When I first used a computer, I was thinking, how can I make games with this? So I started drawing in paint and thinking that that could somehow become a game. It took till I was 13 or 14 until I found like game making software. And all that time I had been thinking I wanted to make something eventually. Just a platformer. I always wanted to make a platformer. I'd never really studied. I just wanted to make something all the time. So all my failures across these many years is what has taught me everything I know. Because I've always tried to make games. I've never sat down and done a bunch of sketching to learn how to draw something. If I know anything today, it's because I tried hundreds of games. And since I did it all alone, I needed all these different aspects, art, music programming, and all that stuff is learned through being stubborn, trying to make a game. I have my stubbornness to thank for some things. I got into pixel art just because the old games were like that. That's like most people, they don't want to make pixel art games. And that was just the first thought on my mind, and that's what I've stuck to. I'm not that romantic about pixel art. I don't need to do it. I'm just fastest with it. I would love to do HD drawn art for a game. But if I'm more efficient with art in one way, I'm more likely to use that. So I care more about narrative and game mechanics than I do art. Iconoclasts started out as the most simple thing you can imagine. It was the dream game of making like a complex story in a Metroidvania or RPG-like setting. So it's that basic premise, and what I ended up with is a fusion of some favorite game, specifically Metroid Fusion, and a game called Monster World 4. So it's basic beginnings, wanting to combine some favorite games into something. But my goal was with it to start out as something very familiar and then slowly start introducing a narrative thread that felt more personal, character-driven, and a bit more serious than those games tend to be. So the short pitch always sounds very cliche, but hopefully as you play the game you figure out that there's more to be said about the characters than what's the most expected. Like there's more personality hidden underneath the characters. They don't talk in extremes like those games tend to. Fittingly, it starts out cliche, and then as I got older and made the game, the characters got more serious. It's not characters expressing how they feel. They're acting on how they feel, like real people. Hopefully by the end, I've succeeded in something that's a little more interesting than saving the world. You're more interested in how the characters fared throughout the journey. It's an action platformer with a lot of polish, because I love polish. It has a lot of bosses. But the thing that hopefully sets it apart is the narrative threads. I'm very much into character-driven and just how people behave in different situations, and specifically how selfishly people act, no matter what the situation. So yeah, that's the long pitch, which goes very much off the gameplay, but people know what the gameplay is. It's gonna be an action game with bosses. Hopefully that ties over those who don't care about the story, but my passion was within the characters. It's been fun to write characters. That's the easy part. Making the game is the hard part. Coming up with a story is what everyone does first. I love establishing a character and feeling like they're real, because then I don't feel the need to have a script. I never had a script. I plan very little because I work worse, I feel, if too much is planned out. So I ended up really liking these characters. I knew what they would do. I had set pieces, I had little notes on what's gonna happen throughout the game as just general set pieces. And as the characters experience those set pieces, they sort of wrote themselves, because I knew exactly how they would react to something, what they would do. Like, I had complete changes in plot because it felt like this character should react this way instead. And that completely changed how the game's tone turned out toward the end. There's like a section of the game that I wanted somebody to be hurt physically, but I amped up how hurt that person was a whole lot, and that lasting damage on that person completely changed how he behaves for the rest of the game, because he grows silent because he's, yeah, I don't want to say details just yet because the game isn't out, but his character was supposed to end up very different, but because of the realism of having sustained that trauma, I completely rewrote how that character acts toward the end. I guess I am an artist who wants to tell stories. I definitely didn't used to be interested in story, but it's been growing as I got to be an adult. It's just a yearning in the last few years where I feel like I really should be trying to make a story that tries to say something, tries to inform people without feeling like it's trying to bash them with facts, but trying to subliminally get their mind around to, oh, this is sort of like this. So I can understand this now, what the point of this is, and maybe now I'm gonna think differently when I interact with other people. That's a lot to ask of anyone to be able to do, but I want to try. Change people's thinking about other people, or where politics might lead if you don't act sooner rather than later. I want to see more games give that experience of living somebody else's life. My motivation has just been, you should make at least one of these big games in your life. I want to see the finished result, and also after a few years there is that sort of negative motivation of, I've spent this time. If I don't finish, I will have thrown away 5, 6, 7 years. So yeah, as long as I had the ability to continue, I should. I have been defined by this video game. Not much else has happened. I don't want to disappoint people, of course. But as of lately, like the last year or two, I just feel I want to move on to just making something for myself and hoping people like it, because that's just gonna be more honest, I think. The more you put in audience expectation, the more the design is not yours. It's gonna be fitting to the public more than yourself. Ideally, I can move on and just make something that is 100% not considering markets or like target audiences. Otherwise, I don't think I can aspire to these sort of new narrative themes I want to try. Success for me is being able to not have to freelance or whatever else. If I can make one more game without needing external income, that would be a very good success. If I get successful enough that maybe I just have to do some, that would be nice too. But hopefully my success on a project is if I can sustain myself. I don't need to be rich. I don't need to have 1 million sales in terms of specific numbers. I just want to make enough to make the next thing without having to sacrifice things for it.